HCAM programming is supported by our viewers, thank you, and by Phipps Insurance Agency, representing companies such as MapFree Insurance. Their family-owned independent agency is deeply rooted in the communities they serve and offer time-tested insurance products to fit individual needs. Since 1950, Phipps Insurance specializes in home, auto, business, condo, and renters insurance. Everybody, and welcome to today's edition of HCAM News. I'm HCAM News Director Tom Nappy, here to fill you in with what's happening in Hopkinton. On today's edition of HCAM News, we have the latest in Hiller sports, plus much more. But first, here are some of the latest happenings in Hopkinton. The Hopkinton Women's Club hosted their annual Meet the Candidates night, featuring candidates in this year's town election. Here's a look at some of the event featuring candidates running in contested races this year.
That background has helped me guide my work on the Board of Health to support the long-term well-being of our community. And over the past 3 years, I have worked with our health department through funding challenges, staffing changes, ongoing public health needs, while keeping essential services available. And we have faced some challenges head-on, made real progress, but there is a lot more work to do. We are working on improving a more effective and informed way to communicate and share health department updates with residents in more quickly fashion. And I am been proud to support updates like digitizing the health department property records, expanding prevention efforts, including nicotine-free generation regulation, vaccination programs, sharps disposal units, and air quality monitoring.
What's the biggest challenge the school committee faces, in your opinion?
Sure, that's a great question. I think that we have a big problem with the budget, but if we focus on that, we are only looking at one component, right? I know it's challenging to manage, and year after year, the budget keeps increasing, but we need to look at this more broadly. We need to think about how schools serve the community at large. The biggest challenge actually facing us is balancing school needs with community needs. In some ways, school needs come from the community, as we have an increasing number of families coming to the area, no doubt because of our fantastic school system. But at the same time, there are many in the community whose families are not actively involved in the schools. That's not the season of life they're in. So we need to be thoughtful about how our schools sit within the broader context of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Shravan? Krishna.
So earlier I mentioned that, the world is changing with AI, right? I live it every day with my job. So what's going to happen with how we need to prepare our students for their future, whether it's higher education or going to the job market after that? There are going to be significant changes on what kind of skills, what kind of education they are equipped with. And I believe that's something that we need to focus on and figure out how can we provide differentiation for our children when they move on from our public schools. And that's why I have some ideas and opportunities to build community-driven pathways modeled after successful programs in other school districts. For example, a medical pathway, an AI pathway with ties to the Massachusetts AI Hub under Governor Healy, business pathway with Chamber of Commerce and BPA partnerships, and other pathways with community feedback. And these pathways are not just about technical skills. Thriving in that role means communication, collaboration, listening, persuasion, and so much more. We want our kids to lead in the AI-driven world without falling into the AI trap that hampers their development. That's what I see as a challenge for the future.
Thank you. Kyla McSweeney?
I think our biggest issue facing us is our growing student enrollment across the district. Our numbers keep going up, even though some people think they're kind of stabilizing. They're not really stabilizing, and that requires more teachers, or bigger class sizes, and which requires more budget. This year, we faced some big challenges in our budget. We only we had to prioritize to what we actually needed. And then we had a health insurance increase in the town, which caused us to have to cut more from the budget. Cutting from that budget, we had to cut a teacher position that we had hoped to add, not a existing teacher, but we had hoped to add an art teacher position at the middle school. Our middle school class sizes are the largest Hopkinton's ever seen right now. And we really needed that position, and we're not going to be able to get it this year. We also needed a second language English teacher at the Marathon School for our kindergarten and first grade students, and we are unable to add that position. So I think there's going to be increasing tension amongst our budget with our growing population and need for more staffing for student-facing positions.
Here's a look at upcoming town government meetings. Coming up on HCAM on Friday, May 8th, we'll have our school committee debate. Start time is 6:30 p.m. That's Friday, May 8th on HCAM. To view all upcoming town government meetings, head over to hcam.tv/gov, or for more information, you can head over to hopkintonma.gov.
I move that the town take action on the articles listed on the consent agenda according to the motions as printed in the 2026 Annual Town Meeting warrant articles and motions document.
The 2026 Hopkinton Annual Town Meeting took place on Saturday, May 2nd, to start out the consent agenda featuring 10 of the articles passed.
Final draft all come together so that we are presenting either this fall or winter a final draft version to then be able to hopefully approve at a special town meeting and then submit over to the folks at the Attorney General's office for final review before it goes onto a ballot.
Acceptance of town reports and unpaid bills also passed unanimously, leading to Article 6, the 2027 operating budget, which was just under $138.5 million.
This brings the total operating budget for FY27 to just over $138 million, which is a 9% increase.
Those are all mid to long-term things, but I really want you all to understand the deficit that we are facing, the bill that is coming due. You've been writing the check for 10 to 20 years. It is here. It is not going to change. We can adopt some fiscal prudence now. You can ask hard questions. You can hold us accountable. I truly hope you do. I promise you next year's budget will be higher.
The budget passed, and so did Article 12, a pilot agreement for Franklin Road Solar.
Taxes the town is collecting for both the personal property and the real estate is the same amount, whether there is a pilot agreement or not. And all of that money, I guess, would be considered a net positive to the town.
Article 13, capital improvements expenditures, raised some debate.
So Gristmill Dam, which is part of North Mill Street, it's a pretty complicated infrastructure. It's got bridges, culverts, dams, impounded waters. It's got historic relevance. It's got environmental impacts. But this project is going to try to deal with a lot of those different things. It will replace the picture in the middle of the 1850 single-span timber structure bridge. If you have not seen a bridge like that, I encourage you to drive over that and see how comfortable you feel, and then you might consider approaching this a little differently.
The article would eventually pass. Article 15, water enterprise capital improvements, required a bit of explanation.
This is money that we'll be borrowing, and it'll be paid back by the water retained earnings. That's the source of funding that will pay it back. It's for items 2, 3, and 5, and the majority of this borrowing will not occur until FY28.
Both motions of the article passed the majority. Article 16, sewer enterprise improvements passed. Article 17 and Article 18, drainage improvements, also passed.
The town has been aware of a significant drainage failure for years. In 2020, water was discharging from an electrical box, clearly demonstrating a serious infrastructure problem. The town investigated, acknowledged the issue, and obtained Conservation Commission approval for a drainage solution. However, this solution was never implemented. As a result, the property continues to sustain ongoing damage to the home, land, and utilities. This is not a one-time event.
Article 20 community preservation recommendations raised a bit of debate and had a few questions.
CPC recommends spending on projects that are in recreation, open space, historic preservation, and community housing. 9 projects are recommended by CPC this year. 2 different motions are required because one requires a majority vote and the other one, because it's a land purchase, requires a 2/3 vote.
The article passed a majority. Town meeting finally also agreed to amend the required MBTA Communities Multifamily Overlay District.
So this is the map we approved at Special Town Meeting 2024. I think there was some ambiguity because the state reviews these maps after the fact. Our downtown district in Walcott Valley, we thought would be considered as kind of one land area, but they said, no, you need a physically connection on a map. Even if a road's in between, you need to be connected top up map-wise. And this is what we're proposing. So the downtown Walcott Valley district, the area in blue, is to basically connect on a map those parcels to the downtown district and Walcott Valley district that would now be known as the downtown / Walcott Valley district, and to remove a parcel on Cedar Street, 19 Cedar Street, to basically try to balance out the best we could, not adding additional land.
Article 22 required developers to cover fees towards the town if required or agreed to affordable housing wasn't built.
10% requirement that we have to meet that basically puts us in safe harbor against 40Bs. So we are above that, we're at 11%. So what that means is that a developer can't come in with a 40B and change zoning and do the development that they want. However, we have a affordable housing requirement, an inclusionary development requirement in our zoning that requires any subdivision 6 units or more to make 10% of their development affordable. So if there was a 10-unit subdivision, one of those units would have to be affordable. And that's what this is speaking to. Not towards a 10% requirement, but our own Hopkinton-specific 10% requirement for developments.
The article passed 90-13. Amendments to fire alarm in Article 23 and driveway bylaws in Article 24 also passed. And Article 25, Police Revolving Fund, establishing an additional revenue stream for needs such as cruiser replacements, would pass.
So just for clarity, we take in 10% of the billable details fees, and that's available. And there's cruiser fees also associated. So if we bill out $1 million, roughly 100,000 figuratively comes into the town. The police department has access to, say, $15,000 for our software for managing the bill, for filling the details and managing the details and tracking the details, and accounts receivable. What this will do is allow us to also use the money for cruisers, which I feel is actually looking towards. I say it was Cindy's idea. It was a great idea. It looks for funding from the source that is actually creating the need or the cost. So it's same silo.
Article 27 established a fund for municipal electric vehicle charging and passed the majority.
The SGC supports adoption of the EV Charging Revolving Fund. A growing proportion of vehicles registered in Hopkinton are EVs or plug-in hybrids. In fact, 20% of the newest model year vehicles in town support electric charging, and 8% of all vehicles in Hopkinton have a plug, a number which has doubled in just 2 years. The town won grant funding for the installation of EV charging stations at 4 public locations over the next year. These municipally owned charging stations will cost the town almost nothing to install, and the revenue from their use will go into this revolving fund to support their maintenance, as well as investing in the expansion of EV charging capabilities in town. More charging options also increases the odds that travelers will pause in town to charge up and visit local businesses. The creation of this fund should allow the charging stations to be self-sustaining from their revenue and not require funding from the town.
Article 28 raised debate but eventually passed a 93-34 vote count. The article regulates use of vehicles such as electric bikes on town trails and shared use paths.
So just to be clear, the paths we're looking at approving to start with, if this passes, are the stone dust paths. and you don't want people going 25 miles an hour there or 20 miles an hour. You want to keep it low for all bikes. The signs will help to educate. We'll do an outreach campaign to help educate. And really, we're looking for the outliers, the people who are massively abusing right now. They're going fast on the bikes and tearing up the trails. There aren't many of them. Most people are respectful. We assume most people will continue to be and will appreciate knowing they can use a bike at a reasonable, safe speed. And for the people who don't, we have at least some opportunity to help enforce as well as educate through signage and outreach.
Article 29 requiring civil fingerprinting for common vendor businesses in town passed with a select board recommendation of no action, 72 to 51.
This was one part of it that was talked about. I think the intent was coming from a good place, but once the board started looking into, everything from how far are we going, and we kind of felt like we were overstepping our bounds a little bit on it. We received feedback from members of the community, specifically the Chamber of Commerce, to get a reflection of how our businesses in town would feel about this. And, we didn't feel it was in the best interest of town to move forward with this piece and add additional cost to a process at this time.
Article 30 through 37 all involved grant easements or acceptance of suggested public ways, and all passed unanimously.
It is currently not permitted with the size of the footprint. So we're asking your permission to potentially engage the abutters to lease this property and hopefully provide CPC funds for the restoration and continued use of this historic building.
Article 38 was the final article of the meeting. The article requested acceptance of Osceola Drive and Zero Osceola Drive. A motion to the article failed the two-third majority with 53 for and 42 against.
Said in their letter in 2024, which said, recognizing this has not been publicly accepted and no progress has been made towards that goal, DPW can no longer perform snow plowing. We did exactly what she said to do in 2024. And now the town wants to change their mind again. And it's just kind of tough.
Doesn't really answer the question. So who's responsible for coming up with the cost?
We have an engineering study that was performed as well that will be turned over to the town as part of the conditions that were required for the planning board too. So we did an engineering study.
Following the failure of motion 1, 19 Greystone Lane, a requested quorum count fell short, putting an end to the 2026 Hopkinton Annual Town Meeting.
Mr. Moderator, with that being said, I make a motion to dissolve the meeting until the annual town election. We clearly do not have the interest to get folks back for two sub-motions. So with that, I think we should dissolve at this point.
We are going to take a quick time out on this edition of HCAM News. A whole lot more ahead. Don't go anywhere.
HCAM is supported by our viewers. Thank you. And by the Hopkinton Independent newspaper and online news site. The newspaper reaches 100% of the homes and businesses in town, and the website is updated daily with exclusive Hopkinton content. Readers can receive a daily newsletter and breaking news alerts via email.
HCAM programming is supported by viewers like you and by Beaumain Pizza Bar and Grill. For over 25 years, Beaumain has been serving great quality food for the whole family, featuring hand-tossed pizzas, paninis, pasta dishes, and a variety of unique appetizers. Enjoy a casual dining room or relax at a comfortable bar with signature cocktails, fine wines, and 16 beers on tap. Beaumain Pizza Bar and Grill. Great food, great drinks, and something for everyone.
Hiller Spring Sports is in full swing. Here are the latest happenings. Also on Wednesday, Hiller Baseball and Softball hosted Holliston. For baseball, Colby Crum and Dylan Hatherley on the call. It was a scoreless game heading to the bottom of the fifth.
And give the team more base runners.
As that one's going to be hit, and that'll go by. And the Hillers looking to score here, and they will. The great play by Noah Krames as he rolls that one past the center fielder, or the shortstop for that one. That'll be a fast grounder past him, and the Hillers will take a 1-0 lead. Second and third. This is a very important pitch here for Baker. As that one will be hit, grounded to the left base, and we will have, I believe, wow, that was a eventful play there, as we'll have a
run will score. Both runs will score, I believe. That's a heads-up play from the catcher, snapping those feet and getting Bogosian at second as he gets a little bit greedy, but that is going to be a costly error for the Panthers.
As the Hillers will take a 3-0 lead here.
Hillers led 3-1 into the bottom of the sixth.
Yet, so we'll see what he delivers here, as it's very crucial for Holliston to hold these guys up.
And that one's hit and will roll through, and a big mistake there by the Panthers, as we'll have another run scored. And a 4-1 lead for the Hillers, just what they needed, as that one was hit on the ground towards the past the third base. So.
Day of the year so far.
As
we'll
you'll
see
get
it again.
hit, and that's a score for the Hillers. It's another hit by pitch for Bussinger. So not the best of days for him, but great news for the Hillers, as they'll take a 5-1 lead here in the bottom of the sixth.
Hopkinton ended up taking the win by a final of 5-1. Hillers softball had a 6-3 lead into the bottom of the third.
And this is driven into left field. That'll get down for a hit. Here comes a run. And how about another? And maybe 3 runs. And that is a 3 RBI triple for Zoe Levine. Ripped up the third base side. That's a fair ball. Here comes a run, a score, and another run. That's going to plate 2 runs. 2 RBI double by Kate Reisenberger.
Hillers played 7 more runs in the third and took a 13-3 lead into the bottom of the fourth.
And this is ripped up the middle. That gets through. 1 run is in. Here comes Tenley Wynn. Will they send a third? Yes, they will. Kate Reisenberger will score. And that is a bases clearing 3 RBI triple for Elin Stomberg. And she puts this one up the right side, bobbled by the first baseman, and everybody's going to be safe. Line up and the pitch. And she tattoos this ball. That drops into center field. Lead runner being waved around. And another one. An RBI double for Caroline Osmond.
Hopkinton plates 10 runs in the bottom of the fourth and would end up taking the win in a 5-inning mercy, 23-3. On Thursday, April 30th, Hiller Boys Lacrosse hosted Medfield.
You see the Hillers got their defenders playing tight around that net. There's a shot and another score for Braden Sutton and Medfield. Braden Sutton already with a hat trick today for the Warriors.
Medfield ended up taking the win over the Hillers by a final of 12-3. Hopkinton falls to 6-3 on the season. On Friday, May 1st, Hiller baseball and softball hosted Medway.
Audney will watch that one again as it skips back to the backstop, and Connor Moore will score on the passed ball. And he will not have the chance to do any damage, as that one's going to hit him. The Hillers now add on to their cushion.
Great stories.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And Rich is going to ground that one. Oh, that's Lang, sorry. And the third baseman cannot handle it. Looks like the Medway pitcher box. Seems like he fumbled the ball in the middle of his windup there. But that'll score a run. Playing behind the bag. And that one's going to be hit hard the other way. Pedroli stays through the zone on that one, and that's going to score another run, now making the game 12-5 for the Hillers.
8 runs in the bottom of the 4th, and the Hillers would take the win, 15-5. Hopkinton improves to 8-4 on the season. Medway falls to 9-3. Also Friday night, Hiller softball battled Medway. Medway had a 5-4 lead into the bottom of the 5th.
Tie the game at 4-piece at the time. A chance to retie it here. That'll get away, and the runner from third slides in. She's safe. We're tied. We had the Hillers played 3 runs in the third. It was 4-4 in the 4th. Now it's 5-5 in the 5th. There's your game summary. This is hit high in the air, right side. See you later! Callie Arthur goes yard, and the Hillers take the lead. Absolutely crushed it. Right up in the pitch. And this is ripped up the middle. Here comes another Hiller run. And that is an RBI single for Bridget Rolecki.
Hillers plate 3 runs and would have a 7-5 lead into the bottom of the 6th.
3-2 pitch. Hit high in the air towards right center, and that is going to leave the ballpark. A home run. Zoe Levine puts the Hillers up by 3. Absolutely crushed.
A solo home run by Zoe Levine gives the Hillers an 8-5 lead, and that's how the game would end. Hillers improve to 11-2 on the season. Medway falls to 0-8. And Hopkinton Little League Softball had a good time racing the bases with the team following the game. Zoe Levine and Callie Arthur both had home runs in the game. We talked to them following the festivities about the Hiller win. Believe it or not, we are out of time for this edition of HCAM News, but don't worry, next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., we'll be back. For everyone at HCAM, I'm Tom Nappy. As always, we thank you for watching. Take care, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk to you again soon. Goodbye, everybody.